Well, once again, thank you for joining the call. The topic of today's webinar is job trends in data science, rise of the algorithmic economy. My name is Arthur O'Connor. I'm the director of the MS in Data Science and the BS in Information Systems online degree programs here at CUNY School of Professional Studies. To show you where we go from here. Oops, there we go. The agenda is, I just want to talk a little bit about how the role of data science is very quickly evolving and give you a little bit of context, background, at least in my own theory on why that is. But then the bulk of the presentation, the overwhelming majority of the slides will be on the sort of highlights of recent job research, where the job market is now, where it's going, what it looks like, and then just very ll a conclusion. We'll tell you a little bit about who we are and then sort of open it up to Q&A. And via Q&A, you'll type in questions in the chat box, and we will respond accordingly. I should say up front, you will be able to receive a copy of these slides, and which I hope you review. And I've cited the sources at the bottom of the slides for those of you who want to look into this in more detail. I think it's interesting that for all the materials that cover the fields of data science, it's interesting that there's no, the field itself really doesn't have any definitive or authoritative source in defining what it is. And so I thought some of these definitions were particularly interesting. The first one involving telling a story and presenting that stories to others. Data science is someone who blends math, algorithms, and understanding of human behavior. The third definition I think particularly like when it says it's Columbus versus Colombo, meaning a big part of it is exploratory in nature, but you also have to have a very skeptical eye in terms of the limitations of of models, in sense of the simplicity of their design relative to the complexities of the real world. Something I learned a great deal in my role in risk analytics on Wall Street during the 2008 credit crisis. And then probably the most practical one is the bottom one, which is the most, it's from IBM. It's very IBM-y and very corporate. But I think it's probably my favorite in the sense of, I think it's really accurate. It represents an evolution from a business analyst or data analyst role. It does combine computer science, modeling, statistics, analytics, and math. What sets the data science apart is strong business acumen coupled by the ability to communicate findings in both business and IT leaders in a way that can influence how an organization approaches a business challenge. And you'll see that same theme going through these slides about the ability or the emphasis now as data science pervades many different industries, the ability to communicate and effectively address business issues, not just pure tech issues. I'm going to show just a few slides here on my own theory on kind of what's driving the whole data science and the labor market changes. And I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but basically, I'm a baby boomer. I was born way back in the 1950s, and my point here is the labor market has changed so dramatically right before my eyes, and I don't think people appreciate how drastically America has changed. Economists are mystified by the labor productivity has sort of topped out since the 2000, as well as wage growth. And this is a chart of the two biggest companies back in 1962, when many of you probably weren't even born yet. AT&T and GM had over 500,000 employees, and their market cap at the time was only $20 and $12 billion respectively. Compare that to 2017, where you have Apple, Alpha is the holding company for Google, and Facebook, and they have market capitalizations, now both of them reached $1 billion since this, but 800, 600, and 440 billion dollars, and yet their employee base is like 106, a fraction of what it was back in the 60s. And the point is that most organizations are using technology or embedded intelligent property in technology in the form of automation or outsourcing agreements or rationalized supply chains. And the contribution of the average worker really doesn't matter as much. And while this slide shows you the extremes of how that's changed, the next slide shows you this is just not limited to technology companies. This has been a growing trend where wages as a part of GDP have steadily fallen, meaning that the contribution of the average worker is becoming less and less important, and some other source, capital as you define it, is increasing that share. And so what we've seen is just a dramatic shift in technology and embedded IP, where you can look at this slide and say to yourself, gee, this is great that the global economy is becoming more efficient in rewarding people like Elon Musk or great investors like Warren Buffett or Bill Gates or superstars in people who honestly generate and create wealth. And that's true, but it's less effective in terms of a stable democratic society that requires a strong middle class. And this is from the New York Times, but I think if there's one slide to show just the dramatic change that I've been talking about, it's this one. And it really is, for those of you who are my generation, this just shows you how much America has changed. For those of you younger people, which I imagine most of you are, this kind of shows you that if you want to get ahead in the world, it's going to be that much more challenging for you than it was for my generation. And that, picking a technology field is probably one way to at least stand a better chance of upward social mobility. Okay, that's it. I'm finished with my soapbox, and now we'll address the job market. So basically, just over the past couple of years, 3 years, we've gone from what is a national surplus of data science skills to a chronic shortage. And here you have the metro areas, and this is a analysis of LinkedIn that showed the availability of resources relative to job postings. And you can see that in some areas there was a surfeit of talent in Chicago, Dallas, Atlanta, but in all cities right now, as of July, there's more openings than there are people. And what is particularly interesting, if you see, is more detailed analysis. This is PwC did an analysis of supply and demand by metro area. So if you're a data scientist out in the open market, you want to be in the upper right-hand corner of this chart, like in San Francisco, where there are more postings. I'm sorry, no, I'm sorry, you want to be in the upper left-hand corner, so there are more postings, low jobs density, meaning there are more openings than there are people in those cities. It's interesting to see New York area, which is right at the, it's not even on the chart, it's so big. And even New York City metro area is still considered barely in that upper left-hand corner, meaning there's just tremendous demand for people as data science diffuses into many different industries. And so if you happen to be in the New York area, this is clearly good news for you. But you can see just kind of where the relative supply and demand of data science talent is in this country. So you can imagine that probably is pushing up salaries, which is probably most true. This is a look from Indeed, the average salary right now. You can see, according to Indeed, the distribution goes from about 45 to over 260. And then there's an average salary of 132. And then some listings, recent listings of salary levels relative to different organizations nationwide. For a more kind of granular level of current salary ranges, this is a more updated view of it from Birchworks is an executive recruiting firm. It specializes in data analytics and analytic talent, as well as a couple other fields. And you'll see that they break it out in sort of manager level, 1 to 3 direct reports, manager level 2 is 4 to 9, and 3 is 10 or more. You see, and they have a rubric here where they differentiate between data scientists and other predictive analytic professionals. I'm not sure what they're getting at, but it seems like you know, if you can change your title to data scientist, you're going to be in better shape from a salary level, at least according to Birchworks. So you see that in the sort of the senior 10 or more people making around the 250 range, and then individual contributors, you know, people with no direct reports, they broke it up by years experience. And so you see it going down to the 160, then down to the 130 range, and then to the very junior level person with only 1 to 3 years experience, less than 100,000. So what does the typical data scientist look like? 70% are male. In our program, that's about true. I think we were, when I first came here about a couple of years ago, we were like in the 1 to 10 range, female to male. Now we're more in the 1 to 7, 1 to 8 range. So we are starting to get more women interested in the field, which is good. According to this is toward data science. They speak at least one foreign language. They've been 2 years in the profession. They've been 4 to 5 years work experience. Their main 2 tools that they use are R or Python, and they have a master's or a PhD. This again is one of the most popular skills. R, Python, and then SQL, and then you have a smattering of other languages, MATLAB, Java, and C++. That's a real mix. MATLAB is a proprietary tool. Java and C++ are compiled languages. So I'm sure there are many other languages that came in at 15 and 10%. They just didn't make the chart. So I would focus on R, Python, and SQL, obviously, for the obvious reason of that is the weapon of choice for data wrangling, and data extraction, and retrieval. R and Python, there's currently sort of like a religious debate on, whether Python's going to take over R. I mean, Python is a great general purpose scripting language. R arguably has become more than just a domain-specific language. Certainly its origins were that in the field, in the domain of statistics, but both are very strong. Both have their strengths and weaknesses, and it'll be interesting to see which comes out first. But as people contribute to their respective libraries, I think it'll be nothing but good to know both languages. So enough on the current state. Let's talk about the future and what is being forecast. And you see the hiring outlook. Obviously machine learning, data scientists. They've grown substantially, but probably the most dramatic growth bullet on that chart is the last one, where they will say they'll be creating 11.5 million jobs by 2026, which is less than 10 years away. So that's a fairly dramatic projection. But of course, it's not going to hit all industries equally. This is forecast by IBM just by 2020, which is obviously less than a little over a year away. And they can see that most of the growth is going to be in either finance, insurance, or professional services. And you can see in that chart the darkest areas where the growth is 41% or above, less dark is 31 to 40, and it goes down from there on the key and the below the chart. But you see that having defined those different categories, those are clearly the fields that will experience probably the most amount of growth, at least are projected to experience the most amount of growth, and less so in healthcare and retail trade. So you might ask, okay, this is all interesting. So what's next? The Wall Street Journal had an interesting article back in August of this year, where it talked about sort of the model-driven business. So it's kind of like the next phase or the next generation beyond the data-driven business. A model-driven business creates a system built around continuously improving models that define the business. The last quote is particularly interesting and scary in a little way. In a data-driven business, the data helps the business. In a model-driven business, the models are the business. So they define what is a model-driven business. It's where business decisions driven by algorithms fed by data rather than explicitly programmed by a developer or implicitly conveyed by human intuition, which for those of you who are familiar in this field, that's basically a working definition of what machine learning is. When models are defined and improved upon by training data, not by a statistician tweaking data sets or tweaking variables or their weights. And the example they use for a model-driven business in this new emerging world is an executive at Tencent talking about his own company. We're one of the companies that has customer data across social media, payments, gaming, messaging, media, music, and we have this information on several hundred million people. Our strategy is to put this data in the hands of several thousand data scientists who will use it to make our products better and to better target advertising on our platform. So just an interesting vision of what the world is coming to. So with that in mind, you might ask, okay, so what do you do? Here's a couple of, well, 6 recommendations from Silicon Republic. All industries open, should you try to specialize? I think that's it's true that industry-specific or business knowledge is becoming increasingly important. Balance academic achievements with on-job learning. Academic training is not a requirement for many data science or advanced degrees will command the attention of prospective employers. I think that's true. I think it's advanced degrees help differentiate yourself, but academic training is not necessarily a requirement or not the most important thing. I mean, most of the employers I talk to will argue that they don't have a degree shortage, they have a skills shortage. So the more, it's best to have both. It's best to have, knowledge and capability and be able to demonstrate those knowledge and capabilities and, links in your resume to GitHub or any other, big repository to show what languages you're proficient in and can apply them. But it also, in this market also is nice to be able to show that you have an advanced degree, which further, credentializes you and helps differentiate from people with simply, undergraduate degrees. Data analytics is essential. High demand is machine learning, AI and deep learning. That's clearly true. As most of you who are in the market will know, the big areas, at least in machine learning, have neural networks, convolutional neural networks for image processing, computer vision, recurrent neural networks for sequence analysis, for example, language translation, and then recursive neural networks. Those fields are growing like crazy. General data protection regulation, I think Silicon Republic is a UK-based thing, so that's anyone doing cross-border data privacy will have to be familiar with that. That's for the EU. Solid business foundation, and keep your technical skills up to date. I want to show you just some quick great sources for those of you who are either entering the field or kind of just starting in, and we've got some great tools here in terms of trying to show people, what learning languages you should have, what textbooks, what tools you should use, what courses and seminars, what data sets you might want to play around with, competitions like Kaggle, and social networks and groups. This is a very sharing profession, and one that really is willing to share information about the field. There are many different open courses you can take. No, thank you. Learning plans for both junior level people or intermediate level people. For the beginner, the transitioner, or the intermediary. All sorts of advice on what sort of things you can do, how you plan it out. Different courses in math or descriptive statistics, algebra, structured thinking, R and Python courses. All these free, all these willing to share their libraries and tools with you. K-means, nearest neighbor, Bayesian, random forests, gradient boosting, all kinds of neat stuff there. They even have a ranking of top boot camps if you're interested in really getting up to speed on different tools or different technologies that come out. And they even have like interview questions. to help people prepare for job interviews. Let's see. Statistical questions, interview questions, as in startup, questions about probability, questions for data science regarding linear regression, logistic regression, questions about machine learning. So a lot of cool stuff. And I'm not deep learning. I'm not suggesting that these four things are the end all and be all of career advice or tools or help guides. But I just want to show you that there's so much out there and so many people tricky our interview questions. So there's just a lot of resources for anyone who really kind of wants to get involved in this field. And there are a lot of people just willing to and helpful to share that knowledge. And so it's hard to imagine a field that is that open and willing to share their value, share their IP, and share the tools that they use. And in turn, we all are expected to then make contributions ourselves as we learn things and develop new things. Just a quick word from our sponsor, CUNY SPS, the Master's in Science and Data Science degree. It's an online program. It's geared for working professionals. Our mission is to help you earn the credentials and acquire the knowledge and skills for either your new career or your next career move. We offer advanced program instruction in R, Python, and SQL using industry best practice platforms. What you get is an academic degree from a well-accredited institution at a very reasonable tuition cost. And we have very reasonable requirements for acceptance. You don't have to take a GRE. And we look for a GPA 3.0 or greater, but that's not a hard and fast rule. It's more like a guideline. We're really more interested in your background, your career, and what kind of person you are and how committed you are to successfully completing the degree. And I think one of our value propositions really, I think, one of the best investments you can make in your career if you're considering such a field. We've been very fortunate to get increased market recognition for our degree program from various different sources. And just to conclude the presentation part, in order to allow adequate Q&A, I would say that in conclusion, I think automation and globalization will continue to enhance the relative value of non-human assets or factors of production, technology, intellectual property, blah, blah, further specializing, segmenting, and polarizing the domestic job market. I think the emergence of the model-based business or algorithm economy will accelerate the demand for data scientists, particularly those with skills in machine learning, deep learning, AI. As the discipline proliferates into nearly all industries, non-technical skills, ironically, I think are becoming more important. Business savvy, people, leadership, communication skills, and data intuition. There was an article, as evidence of this, there was an article in the Harvard Business Review on this new role called analytics translator from McKinsey, and it just shows you, as data science pervades into lots of different disciplines, it gets out of the sort of the back office, middle office into the front office. There's this new role for people who can not only have data science skills, but also have communication skills. I just thought that was so interesting. It really does make sense. And they see this as, they call this person analytics translator, translating what they do in the back office, in the data geeks like me, into the front office on how can we use these tools to get more insights into our customer and their behaviors, or optimize our supply chain, or improve profitability, product mix, or whatever business issues they're facing, or challenges they're facing. And I think at the end of the day, and probably if there's one thing or one thought I can leave you with, is that while the value of having hands-on experience and expertise in a broad range of tools, frameworks, and programming languages, exactly the ones I described, which we offer here at CUNY and the School of Professional Studies, as well established, I think it's really most important that the personal commitment to continuous lifetime learning is perhaps the best way to ensure your skills remain marketable and relevant. And with that, I'd like to open it up to Q&A and see what questions we have here. So let me see if I can open this up. Oh, okay.
And what you can do is, yeah, you can click the sentence, Arthur, and you should be able to see the full sentence below.
I see it, yeah. Thank you. So, okay, question plus, okay, we do that. Justin asked, do you have any data that shows how many students are jumping into the field now compared to several years ago? Unfortunately, I don't. But he said, I'm starting to see that software engineers with the whole STEM push campaigns. I think it's true as a general rule, but Justin, unfortunately, I don't really have any data. I can say intuitively and anecdotally, I certainly have found that to be true in the last 2 years, but I don't really have a lot of data to support that. Can you send them presentation? Yes, we will. How do we get a copy of the slides? Darren, you send that out afterwards, is that correct?
Yeah, we send a follow-up email containing a video of the webinar in a few days.
Okay, okay, cool, wonderful, wonderful. Okay, there you go. What about data visualization software? Rick asked, do you have any suggestions for software for training for that? Well, Rick, I think, you probably already know that the sort of the Tableau has really taken storm, and probably is the most, from a proprietary software perspective, that's probably really has probably the largest single market share of any of the packages. In terms of general purpose languages, Python and Python related frameworks and tools probably are those libraries continue to grow, and they just have such great stuff. So it really depends on kind of what you're using it for, and whether you can use proprietary, or do you have to rely on general purpose open source tools. What's the basic difference between data analyst and data scientist? I have no idea. Those words are often used interchangeably. And like I said, I like to think a data scientist or data analyst is a subset of a data scientist. So data analysts, at least in my own personal view, are all about wrangling data and improving the quality of data and understanding what the data really does and what it really means. Data scientist is taking that data and building models to model that measures certain phenomenon, and tooling those models into either descriptive, predictive, or optimization models to make a more informed business decision. What's the basic difference? Oh, here. Any employment next move stats on graduates of the program? Lenora, that's kind of a tricky question for us because most of our students, because we are an online program geared towards working adults, they already have jobs. So it's really, and some of them have fairly impressive jobs. So it's really, they look to our program really more to enhance their career. But we don't, unfortunately, we're starting to develop an alumni track to see where they wind up, but we don't have data on that. How do you think the market will look 4 to 5 years for people with bachelors in data science? Laura, I think I think it looks very good. There are very few bachelors of data science programs right now. I'm sure that will grow, but I sure think that if you can develop your skills, I think it's if you stay in the field and want to advance in the career, I think it's advantageous to have a postgraduate degree, clearly. But I think just given the huge demand, Laura, for this skill set, I think that'll be fine. For someone who is self-studying, what internship should I look at and what projects should I work on? Currently, I make data frame from Kaggle using pandas and Ruby. That's a hard question to ask, but we don't currently offer any internships here, but I would think that your best bet would be just to go to some of the big analytics job sites and just check them out and see what opportunities they can offer you. Lisa asks, is the master's program suitable for people interested in biomed and social science? Lisa, I would say yes and no. Yes, in the sense that we're a very methods-based program, unlike many other data science programs. So we're really focused on, getting you up to speed on various different frameworks and tools so that you can apply those talents to biomed or social science or finance or anything you want to. We don't really have a particular vertical or industry focus, with the exception we have some electives that, like, we have a quantitative finance elective, and we're slowly building out more electives in like environmental studies and whatnot. But our core is really more, again, methods-based. What basic things you really need to know to call yourself a data scientist, and then in your either electives or your capstone, meaning the final course in your program, you'll then be able to apply what you've learned to your field of interest. And Lenora has a typo, and we go to, do you recommend a specific library in Python? That's good to know. Justin, the good news is that there's so many different tools and libraries in Python. It really depends on what you're trying to accomplish. But I would encourage you to check those libraries out because I think they're just wonderful and they keep growing. People keep contributing data visualization, industry-specific data frames, just really amazing stuff. And again, it evolves every day. So I encourage you to check that out. Any projections for jobs in nursing and healthcare? What is the contribution of the nurse SME secretary who has clinical and business intel as well as data analytics wrangling skills? Marianne, I would, oh, she left, but I will answer the question. I think there's medical outcome research is a huge field, not just in pharmaceuticals, but also in primary care. And so I think that would have tremendous value in someone who can combine those skill sets with healthcare sets would be in very hot demand. how are utility companies using data science? Christopher, we are working with New York Power Authority in measuring the energy efficiency of different buildings based on their construction and how they're used. And this is of just tremendous interest in corporations seeking to reduce their energy costs. And it's not a question of just what materials you use or whether you have solar panels unused, but also the configuration of the building and how the building is used in different floors. So it takes whole energy efficiency into a whole next level of complexity and sophistication. That's the one thing that our school happens to be working on, but I can imagine there are tons of other examples, if I knew that much about the utility industry, which I don't, that they're using data science for. And that's about, one more question. Yusuf asks, thanks for the answer. Are these slides available for download? And would there be an open house for data science? Yes, we will. We have info sessions that you can go to online. Can I apply to the master's program of computer science knowledge or training? Lisa, we do have some students who are new to the field. We tend to recommend certain massively online courses, which I've described in the slide deck, to sort of get up to speed, to see if they're really proficient or have an aptitude for this sort of thing. And then once they decide to do that, we apply. So the answer is yes, you can apply. And for those people who have rusty programming skills, we offer a bridge workshop for free to sort of get you up to speed on that. And so just to close it out, for more information on our program, the link is there listed below. To apply for our program, the link is listed under that bullet. The deadline is in December for our spring 2019 semester, which starts at the end of January. And for those of you who are interested in teaching, we're always looking for good professors, and all of our instructors are working professionals. So if you are a working professional in data science and feels like you would like to teach in our online program, please send a note, an updated resume to me, and I'll be happy to speak to you. And let's see, does that? Yeah, I think that answers all the questions today, Darren.
Okay.
One last one for instructors. Do you need a doctorate, Justin? The answer is no. Some of our instructors have doctorates, but we don't need one. We're really more interested in kind of what you can do. So that's it.
All right, so we'll close out then.
All right, thank you all for joining the call. And again, you'll be receiving this deck, tomorrow?
Probably a few days, probably 3 days.
Okay, a few days. And in the interim, check out our website, and if I can be of any further or answer your questions, please let me know.